Okay, hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or anything in between, depending on where exactly in the world you are right now tuning into this webinar, hosted by us here at LSX Leaders in partnership with AlphaSense on the topic of the growing significance of AI in biopharma BD&L. So a couple of different things before we get going. We're going to start today's webinar with a very short presentation from Ed Kivell at AlphaSense before coming back for a panel discussion with some of our speakers. You'll see at the bottom of your screen, there are chat functions, Q&A functions. Please do make use of these functions. Any questions that you have for the panel, please do post in there. We will do our best to get around all of them when it comes to the panel portion of the webinar. Until then, I would like to hand over now to Ed Kivell at AlphaSense, who's going to kick us off with a very short presentation. So Ed, if you'd like to share your screen, bring the slides up, we can get going. Once again, to all the attendees with us today, please do post any questions in the Q&A function at the bottom. And as I mentioned, we will get round to them a little bit later on. But on that note, Ed, I can see that your slides are perfectly up on screen, so I'll just hand over and we'll come back very shortly.
Great, thank you so much, Adam. Hi, everyone, wherever you are based in the world. My name is Ed Kivell. I lead our life sciences business here at AlphaSense. Now, the plan for this very quick introduction is to essentially introduce you to AlphaSense, and really make this in relation to how AI is affecting the biopharma world and where essentially AlphaSense fits into this world, because it is a very broad world. We'll probably get into this later in the discussion in terms of how AI is impacting the biopharma world and how AlphaSense supports our clients. And our clients, some of you might be on the line who are already users of AlphaSense. So we work with companies from the likes of GSK, Merck, AstraZeneca, all the way down to smaller biotechs that leverage our technology. But maybe before I get into what AlphaSense is, quick introduction of myself. So my name is Ed Kivell. I lead our life sciences business for international here at AlphaSense. I've been with AlphaSense for around about 5 years now. I was the second hire here in Europe 5 years ago now, and I'm very proud to say we have around about 130 people here in Europe, and we're around about 1,500 people globally. So AlphaSense has been an incredibly fast-growing business over the last 5 years. We've gone from our Series A fundraise now up to our Series E fundraise, and we're backed by the likes of Google Ventures, Capital G, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and so many more. So it's been a really great journey so far, and that's been down to the value that we add to our clients, and hopefully you'll see some of that as we go through the presentation here today. But essentially, what is AlphaSense? AlphaSense is an AI-driven search engine. So we leverage generative AI and natural language processing overlaid across a huge library of information. And it's all about helping our clients find that needle in the haystack, be it a potential new a new partnership opportunity or a new company to invest in their startup, or maybe a new competitor in the market. AlphaSense is all about helping you find insights more quickly and more effectively. But I don't want to kind of kill you all with slides before we get into the really interesting discussion. So what we had put together is just a kind of a quick overview of what we are seeing across more broadly the biopharma space in regards to artificial intelligence. Now, unless you've been buried under a rock for the last 12 months, you've probably heard of things like ChatGPT and all of the kind of the world-changing expectations that AI is going to have be it good or be it bad. And I know there's been huge amounts of debate whether it's going to be a good thing, bad thing, should there be more regulation, less regulation. But what we're seeing very much in AlphaSense and the analysis that we're doing, specifically within the healthcare space, is it's certainly being talked about, be it good, be it bad. We're seeing that it really matters when it comes to executives across biopharma companies. And when we leverage AlphaSense's search technologies, and we're tracking mentions here of AI, we're certainly seeing an increase, especially around generative AI across documents within AlphaSense. So this is either companies talking about how they're going to invest in this across a whole range of topics. And this is only going to get larger. We predict that this is going to get more of a key topic as we look to 2024. But really, when we think about AI, obviously I mentioned earlier, there's lots of different areas that companies can invest in AI. So we're seeing partnerships. I know Sanofi have made big investments within generative AI, partnering with Microsoft, Palantir, when it comes to leveraging internal data insights. We're also seeing partnerships from companies where they're looking at specific drug discovery. And I know we'll get into what AI means for the drug discovery world when we get into the debate or the conversation after this presentation. But generally, in terms of AI and the conversations, it's a pretty broad range of different implications. And I actually sat down with a head of AI who sits in one of our large German pharma clients. And he said that they've identified, as a starting point, 900 applications for generative AI across their business. 900 applications. So obviously that's a huge basis for applications and transformation to their business. So they really started off by focusing just on, I think he was going to focus on 80 key use cases for generative AI to start off. So when we think about AI and the breadth of change that it can have to an organization, there are so many different ways. And I'm really looking forward to discussing and debating kind of where that is best invested and where really the impact is going to have on the end users of the generative AI. But where does AlphaSense fit into all of this? So AlphaSense assists our clients along the journey of essentially market intelligence. So what we do as an organization is, first of all, we collate a huge amount of content into our platform. So we bring in things like PubMed, clinical trials, FDA data. We have data from trade and industry journals, so things like access to the Lancet, Fierce Pharma, all the different journals of public health. And then we have things like conference data. So I know the ESMO conference is ongoing or is just coming to an end. You get access to all the different posters, transcripts, presentations at that conference. And then you also have things like investment banking research. So what is the different investment banks, be it Goldman, Cowen, JP Morgan, Bank of America, saying on particular topics. And then we've also just added in primary research into our platform as well. So we've added things like interviews with doctors, physicians, former employees into AlphaSense as well. So think about AlphaSense as being this central knowledge hub of high premium data that can support our users all the way through the pipeline, be it someone that works in, I don't know, BD&L at a large pharma company, or someone that works as a CEO on a kind of smaller biotech that's looking to make investments. AlphaSense is all about bringing all of this content into one place. So what I'd say is, when we think about generative AI and especially ChatGPT that we've probably all used, Those platforms are great, but they're based on all of the data, and they're trained on all of the data that's out there across the internet, be it some bloke that writes his opinions on LinkedIn or Twitter or on a blog post. AlphaSense trains our data and our large language models across only the premium data that's available within our tool. So what that really means for our clients is that they can trust the data that they're getting from the insights that they're looking for. And that really leads me into what is kind of our core value that we add to our clients, which is the search engine that we overlay on top of all of this content. So we overlay all of this content with a very powerful search engine. So for example, if you can see my screen now, here we're overlaying all of that data that I just mentioned for a simple search looking around Alzheimer's and phase 1. Now, this is a great example of how BD teams use AlphaSense to identify potential partnership opportunities. In this example, you'll see here that we're running in the search box Alzheimer's and phase 1 in AlphaSense. So this is a very basic search, but what you'll see is that Alzheimer's and phase 1 is all underlined in orange. Now that means AlphaSense understands the different word variations for Alzheimer's and phase 1. So it's going to pick up all of those different word variations across all of those different high quality data sets within AlphaSense. So what we do is we can search within the platform. In this case, we're looking around Alzheimer's and phase 1. So we've run this search and we're pulling up over 4,500 documents around Alzheimer's and phase 1, but we're also collating this to companies as well. So let's say I'm within BD and I'm looking for new opportunities in this space. I can come in here and I can say, right, AlphaSense has found me 388 companies that are in this space. So some of these companies I've probably heard of before, actually maybe some of them I haven't heard of before. So AlphaSense is using our generative AI to essentially tag these high quality data sources to individual companies. So not only allows you to identify potential acquisition targets, partnership targets, but allows you to then take that next step in analysis. So let's say, right, I found this company, but I want to dig deeper on who they are. So in this case, this is a company called Therapeutics. I can then click on this company. I can look at Chimera Therapeutics. I can then straight away come in here, find all the relevant information around their phase 1 clinical trial and what are they doing in this space. So this allows me, first of all, very quickly to identify potential opportunities or targets within this space, which could take weeks, could take months, or could be down to me trying to meet someone at a conference. But within AlphaSense, we're straight away collating you a list of 350 potential target opportunities. And then we're allowing you to then take that next step incredibly quickly to summarize the relevant information around, in this case, what this company is doing within their phase 1 Alzheimer's clinical trial. So AlphaSense is all about helping you, first of all, cut through all of the information that's out there and also find that potential opportunity for you to maybe invest, open the discussion, and then deep dive further into maybe what Cavlan is saying on this particular company, or if we have a doctor, a primary research call on this particular company. It's allowing you to take that next step in your analysis. So in terms of AlphaSense and what we offer high quality content, and we also offer you a search engine that can help you identify information and find that needle in the haystack. But I think the key differentiator, especially as we start to think around other generative AI tools that are on the market, AlphaSense is only searching across high quality business content that's been vetted by our clients. our search engine is also based on being trained by a financial algorithm. So we search in terms of what we think an analyst would be searching for as well. So that has really helped us build our own large language model, and which we hope is going to give our clients a lot more targeted and more specific results, as it's been trained on what an analyst would look like, not what a kind of a normal consumer like you might find on a ChatGPT search engine. So AlphaSense allows you to, first of all, search across this information, but then also allows you to proactively monitor this as well. So let's say you've identified this company, you've kind of dug into who they are, you've been able to do your analysis, and actually now we want to monitor this company for potential future investments. We can then set up alerts, we can set up dashboards, really, so you're not missing any key pieces of information on this company as well. And you're in the most informed place to make that investment or not make that investment, should you see fit. But for us, we see generative AI, and when we speak about generative AI, it's all about sourcing knowledge and making our clients more productive. It's all about making teams essentially be better at their jobs. I don't think we're going to be replacing people in their roles, but hopefully we'll be able to allow them to spend less time searching for information, less time reading through documents, and more time actually making informed decisions and coming up with strategic information from the analysis that we give them. For us, AlphaSense is kind of only just getting started, and we're starting to roll AlphaSense out across internal data as well. So you can actually plug your internal data into the platform, so you can have both an external view and an internal view within one search as well. So there's lots of exciting things that are in the future for the platform, and if anybody would like to have a demo of the platform, please do reach out to me. I'm sure Adam can send over my contact details. And if anyone has any questions offline, I'd be more than happy to help as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ed, for that opening presentation. And indeed, so now brings us to a little bit more of a wider context panel discussion on the use of AI in biopharma. So we're now joined by our lovely panelists for today. So I think to kick off the panel discussion, I'd like to go around each panelist and invite everyone to introduce themselves to the audience. And if you are using AI at your organization, how exactly are you employing it at the moment? Or alternatively, what your current views on the use of AI are. So my mum wouldn't forgive me if I forgot my manners. So Olivia, I'd like to come to you first, ladies first. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thanks a lot, Adam. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel. So I'm Olivia Cavlan. I'm a co-founder and Chief Corporate Development and Strategy Officer at Alchemab Therapeutics. My background is that I was, before founding Alchemab, was at a venture capital fund. Before that, I was a partner at Quantum Black, which is an AI company focused on therapeutics discovery as part of McKinsey. And then before that, a medic. So briefly, how Alchemab uses AI. Alchemab is a therapeutics discovery company focused on monoclonal antibodies. And really what I would say is that we are AI enabled as opposed to, I guess it being the cornerstone, but it's a very important part of how we discover those antibodies.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Olivia. Just working my way around the screen clockwise. Matthias, I'm going to come to you next. If you'd like to introduce yourself to the audience today, please.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here, and thanks a lot to LS6 for putting together this excellent webinar. So I'm Matthias Mullenbeck. I'm heading Global Business Development and Alliance Management at the Healthcare Division of Merck KGaA Darmstadt, Germany. So look, AI is for us pretty central. I like actually how Ed said it, if you were not kind of sleeping on a rock over the last weeks and months. Yeah, you have heard of it, you have been in touch with it. our ambition is really to become one of the most respected science and technology companies when it comes to the use of data and AI within the industry. We've been in the field already for a while. We have our own kind of subsidiary, Syntropy, which is a digital marketplace for data, actually, where demand and offering, so to speak, meets. Yeah, so you can check it out if you're not aware of it yet. But let's say from the mainframe business as we see it at the moment for us, of course, and you have maybe followed our news flow, AI and drug discovery is a really big application field. Yeah, we're pursuing at the moment hundreds of use cases. I cannot go through all of them, but just want to pick out the AIDD, so AI and drug discovery activities, because we do truly believe that AI, and that has a physical embodiment, robotics component, and it has, of course, the software algorithm co-pilot component for drug design. Yeah, both of these things will really fundamentally change the way how we think about designing drugs and how we think about developing drugs. We maybe can later talk a little bit about other uses, especially in the BD arena. Yeah, but just to tease it, I mean, we do truly believe that we're entering now into the age of co-pilot, if you wish, that may last for the next 2 to 3 years. It won't be so long, I believe, yeah, before we really have our digital employees, yeah, that really support us in everyday decision making, maybe landscaping, you think about from a search evaluation perspective, yeah, and do it, of course, subject to validation, yeah, and we do all that really, and then I stop with our own proprietary version, if you wish, of ChatGPT, which we call MyGPT. So this is actually a Merck sandbox version, so that we can really have the freedom to also use sensitive data in there, where we plug in really different proprietary data sources to understand and make really the impact of that technology tangible to every employee.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that, Matthias. Martin, I'm going to come to you next. If you would like to introduce yourself to the audience and how you are employing AI.
Brilliant. Very nice to be here, and very nice to see some familiar faces kind of as well, which is always a plus. In terms of brief background, I also come from a medical discipline originally. I qualified as a doctor in Germany, worked as an oncologist, came to the UK, did my PhD in early stage cancer drug discovery. And that became the starting point for me to found Arctoris, together with my co-founder, who's a chemist by background, as we saw there is a very clear need within drug discovery to improve the processes that we use, not just to analyze data, but to generate data in the first place. So we see ourselves primarily as the source of high quality, highly structured, fully annotated data for AI applications. We do have our own kind of small in-house data science team, but the primary purpose is generating the data that powers AI decision-making in our partners and clients.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Marko, I'd like to come to you for your introduction.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. My name is Marko Kuisma. I am a partner at a venture capital fund called the Innovestor Life Science Fund. I'm going to say a few words about that, but my own background, I'm a microbiologist and a master of economics by training. And I've been working for about 15 years in the health sector and dealing actually quite a lot with AI developments and AI models. In my previous experience, I've worked with big genomic data and clinical data management and analytics. I worked a lot with data curation related to that data that you use to train and validate those models. I've been in a company that used AI directly in the patient treatment and patient management setting as well, and now a partner in the fund that I mentioned. So just a few words about the fund. We are a Finland-based venture capital fund with close to 100 million euros in assets under management. We are an early stage investor, and we focus on drug development in the biopharma sector, as well as digital health. And sort of in that intersection, I would say that, intersecting those two, we are extremely interested also in AI solutions, especially for drug development, I guess, across the drug development continuum, whether we're talking about drug discovery or whether we're talking about downstream, other topics such as clinical trials or post-market surveillance, or you name it. And as I think Matthias said, the use cases are, close to limitless. Yeah, I'm excited to be here and hope to be able to give a bit, I guess, more of an investor's perspective to the area.
Fantastic. All right, great. Now that we know all of our panelists just a little bit better, we can get going with the main discussion. First, though, I would just like to launch a quick polling question for the audience. I think you might see this pop up on your screen. If you'd like to cast your vote, we'll be able to see the results live here in the webinar. So while that is going on, Ed, let me come back to you after that presentation. So my first question for you, what exactly are you seeing in the market right now with your clients? And what would you say the main pressure points you feel AI could solve?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's certainly interest, and I know a lot of people understand kind of the interest, but I think there's definitely appetite for generative AI in whatever form that might be. And I think that's part of the challenge of generative AI as a whole, because there are so many different applications, and for large corporations, it's kind of, we have a finite amount of resources that we know that we have all these different use cases. How do we use our money essentially, and how effectively, and how do we invest this money effectively? What we're seeing straight away is that there's obviously, everyone has this issue across organizations, doesn't matter how big or small you are, in terms of data being locked within internal files that are very hard to access that data once they've kind of gone into the ether that is people's hard drives. So the main interest that we're getting is from our clients are saying, how do we unlock the value that's stored within our own internal data? And when we support them through our product Enterprise Insights, that helps them essentially unlock that amazing value that people have within their own internal insights, and bring that information to everyone across an organization. So where we're supporting our clients is generally making them essentially more productive and kind of democratizing the access to their internal data.
Fantastic. So I think we've just got the first results in for this polling question. Roughly 49% of our attendees are using AI to generate some kind of insights. Roughly 15% aren't, but what's surprising is 37% of our attendees are in progress of employing the use of AI to generate or gain insights of some sort. So on that note then, Matthias, I'd like to come to you. In your role, obviously sourcing deals, looking for new innovation to work with. How exactly could AI enhance the BD process, do you think?
Yeah, look, I think as Marko already said, there are endless opportunities. So let me pick a couple of examples maybe to illustrate and make it tangible. One application area that we clearly see is, of course, in the search and evaluation and monitoring of assets and landscapes. Yeah, so think about, and I guess the majority of the audience may have been in that situation. You want to look at a totally new therapeutic area, right, that you're not so familiar with, because you, for example, have an interesting asset being offered. Yeah. Typically, it takes a while until a group of people have worked themselves into that new area, right, to really understand what's going on, so that you can build and position that asset that has been offered to you in that landscape. Of course, the generation of this landscape with any AI-based solution is almost on a click of a button. Again, it needs validation, for sure, human validation, and especially in these days, assisted learning approaches. Yeah, but at the end of the day, if you really plug into your AI engine proprietary data sources, and we all have access, I think, to great databases, right? You can really consolidate very quickly an industry picture and have a rough view that needs kind of, again, some qualification by the team, but you are then much quicker to get an understanding of how to position the assets. That's maybe one thing. The second thing, as an example, connected to it, is the monitoring. Once you have identified the landscape and can literally identify the assets of interest in a certain area of interest, right? You can very real life follow these molecules, right? So whenever news are popping up, right, you have them. News, public information, but also more private information, conference posters, whatever kind of digitalized data sources you have access to. And I think the general theme here is that you have an interface that helps you to manage the information and sort out really the relevant information from the noise. Yeah, I think that's the one area. The second area clearly is, if you think around financial modeling, right? Depending on what the taste of your organization is, right? If you're rather looking at business case from a sensitivity perspective, you look at business case more from a scenario perspective, of course, these ones can be generated at much faster speed once the original model has been set up and validated. And then maybe lastly, legal. Yeah? The beauty about legal systems, I don't know if you ever thought about it, is it's a very defined space that follows very exact rules, at least to large extents, in the area that we are working in here. So it's not, you know, so complicated to train an AI engine in helping to generate red lines, in reviewing agreements, to train an engine to understand what is it that, you know, we as a corporation, as a buyer, want to see in such agreements, and give first guidance on where we stand. As I said before, we don't see that any of these things will now, today, replace any of the, you know, team members that we have, because experience is something that still will need to be further developed. But I just want to put out a word of caution, where I'm always surprised how quick development cycles and technology cycles are turning, right? And I said it in my intro, we believe this age of Copilot may be only there for 3 years, and then we will see that really we have really a totally different level of reliance on these AI-guided activities than what we have today. I truly believe in that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any comments from any of the panelists on anything there? Anything jump out at anyone?
I'd like to comment. So I think what Matthias is doing at Merck is absolutely fascinating. So, you know, I kind of sit on the other side. I'm the kind of BD counterpart. And what you've told me makes me think, my God, from a BD perspective in biotech, we're going to have to be much more sophisticated in the future about how we do deals. And that is everything from, let's say, your preclinical biotech. You don't have as much information that goes into Ed's database. You know, we're going to have to be more, sometimes we don't want to share information because actually we haven't patented it yet and we want to keep it close to heart. And that's when we might go, you know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge to, you know, a BD colleague in pharma and say, this is really exciting, you've got to look at it, but it's not going to crop up on those databases. So we need to be much more thoughtful about how we do that initial promotion piece. And then secondly, if we get into doing the deal modeling, you know, right now we'll use, I'd say, back from my consulting days, relatively rudimentary, you know, Excel modeling spreadsheets to work out value shares for companies and how it changes, you know, for each of those dynamics. And clearly, again, that's going to be much more sophisticated. And then finally, you know, the actual negotiation process, which it's you know, direct, it's sit down over a coffee, it's you know, formal emails, formal negotiation structures, and you know, a lot of kind of personal influence there, and that dynamic is going to change as well. So I think it's a fascinating development, which I'll be honest, I wasn't aware of before this panel.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Matthias, any comments there? Yeah,
I just want to make one comment. Still, I do truly believe, right, that especially transaction business is a people's business. And I think it's, I don't know, Marko, if you agree, it's the same for investment, maybe even a little bit more, right? And that won't go away, in my view, right? Because that is nothing a machine can emulate so quickly. I think it will help us to make decisions, as you said it, Olivia, it will accelerate the path to it much quicker, right? And again, you have in the negotiation room, you get a new information, you model it within seconds because you have everything set up, right? And I think that's the power at the end that I will bring.
I mean, I'll tell you what, if we can reduce legal fees through this process, that's a big win.
Matthias, I was going to just lead you on from that around reducing fees. Does that mean do you spend less time and maybe money? I know this is an LSX a webinar. Do you spend less time going to conferences now because you're relying more on technology? Have you, I don't know, has it made you kind of review that process?
Nobody has asked me that question before, to be honest. The answer is no, I think, because again, it's a people's business, right? So I think why people go to conferences, of course, to get whatever is the content that is being communicated, but again, it's about meeting the people, building the connection, and also a little bit, you know, getting the information that may be not on the databases, right? And to get the feel in between, yeah, even for publications or patent application, whatever it is. Yeah? So I think, no, we will not reduce it.
Also, I think, at these conferences, it's that human interaction at the moment, at least, AI can't exactly replace, and hopefully won't replace for a long time. Just want to make sure that we stick on track to getting around everyone. But before we do, Matthias, could you maybe elaborate? We've just had one question coming in. Could you maybe elaborate on what you meant by co-piloting?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So age of co-piloting, I mean, think about Microsoft Copilot. So in case you're not familiar with the product, it's being rolled out at the moment. It's an engine that, for example, could record the session and generates at the end not only a script, but could kind of, answer you the question, on what points did Olivia and Matthias agree and disagree? Yeah, you find the same thing, I think, in every application at the moment. So there was some sort of AI gizmo, if I may say, being plugged on top of an existing technology platform that helps you to go faster, cheaper, more efficiently, whatever is the metrics. Yeah, and I think after the age of Copilot, there comes the age of truly integrating AI in a new way of working. And I think that was my biggest epiphany, really getting into this topic, that this co-pilot phase we're entering, that's not the new way of working. It's an acceleration of what we do, but it will define then as a second wave. And again, my belief truly is it will come very much quicker than we all feel, right? It will redefine really how we work. And that is true for some areas. You think about call centers. You will not need call center agents in a few years. And at the moment, if you look at the matrices macroeconomically, things are going down because an AI can do it, literally, right? Special services outside. Yeah, so that's really what I meant. So Copilot assisting under the way that we're currently working and enhancing it, and then redefining totally the way how we may drive forward. Same for AI and drug discovery, right? At the moment, all pharma companies use it as an add-on to the typical way of how they are doing it. But you all know there are some biotech companies out there that are not doing it the traditional way. They're doing it just the new AI-enabled way.
Yeah.
Hope that clarifies.
I'd like to shift focus now slightly and come back to you, Olivia, for maybe some of the more biotech drug discovery perspective on the use of AI. So, I think when it comes to drug discovery, there's a couple of different approaches people can take. In your opinion, though, is it better to take a general or specific one when considering the use of AI in drug discovery?
Yeah, well, I think if you ask that to every individual in this panel, you get a different answer. But when it comes to biotech, you have to be specific. If I was looking at what we do, we are focused on that drug discovery end of the application of AI. So as Marko mentioned, you can apply AI at every single point along the drug discovery pathway, and we're focused, or drug development pathway, on the very beginning of that. And the way that I think about that is really split into three things. So one is identifying new targets. Two is identifying therapeutics can modulate that target and that biology. And three is then using AI to support moving that new target and that therapeutic to clinic as fast as possible. So enabling that preclinical development as quickly as you can. So where we are focused is very much on that first one. And the reason that we're focused particularly on that first one is because of really, we have a team who are very experienced at drug discovery. Our team have been at AstraZeneca, some of them for many, many years, 30 years or so. Some of them have contributed to the discovery and development of Humira, one of the highest selling antibodies of all time in therapeutics. And I think where they came from is that to some extent, drug discovery today is broken. We've got this 10% success rate that hasn't moved over the last 20 to 30 years, despite the fact that, 70 years ago, exactly, we identified the structure of DNA. 20 years ago, exactly, we completed the full human genome project. We still have not moved on that 10%. So how do we change that? And our firmly held belief is that we change that by focusing on the biology, which means the target. And so what AI is enabling us to do is really, as Matthias mentioned before, is do discovery in a different way. We don't start discovery by saying, let's drug that target with the best drug we can. We start discovery by saying, let us use the body's, her own immune system to guide us to what the most important targets are going to be to modulate that biology. So as you can see, our focus is incredibly specific. And I think, you know, when you look at every different biotech company, they will typically be using a very specific way of using that AI for their process. And I think if you look at where we are today, particularly given the kind of economic situation, the really challenging financial environment for biotechs, there can be no time wasted on generally applying AI. You know, any biotech worth anything, you know, hopefully worth cash today, hopefully worth more than cash today, but will need to apply AI to finding and moving forward candidates as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Martin, I'd like to bring you into this question as well, also representing the biotech side of things. General or specific, you know, what's your views on the type of approach when it comes to AI drug discovery?
Yeah, so I'm very much kind of echoing kind of the points we've just heard. I think one thing which I always find very important to say up front is AI kind of is an extremely broad category. There is not one use of AI for drug discovery. Drug discovery consists of hundreds of different, very complex steps, for many of which there are very specific AI solutions which can come in very handy. There are companies that we all know that apply AI to target discovery. There are companies that use generative AI to come up with new molecular structures. There are other companies that use AI to predict certain molecular properties. There's other companies that use AI to help us with clinical trial recruitment. So I think one theme which really kind of, to me, emerges very clearly in our industry is that we're starting to understand that you have to look into the specific use case. What is the problem you're trying to solve? What is the right approach to do so? AI is not magic. It's a very advanced form of statistics which can help you make certain decisions, but you have to have the right question at hand, you have to have the right expertise, and you have to have the right data. And that is something which right now I see as one of the key bottlenecks in our industry, which is having the right amount and the right quality of input data that you can use to train your models.
Absolutely. Maybe on the back of that then, maybe a question for both Olivia and Martin. You know, when it comes to the limitations of employing AI and maybe some of the factors holding back AI in drug discovery, you know, what would you say to that? Maybe Martin, if we come to you first, and then maybe Olivia secondly.
So I believe kind of there are organizational, structural, and kind of there are also technical challenges that we need to look at. When it comes to structural organizational, I think in what we've just kind of heard from Matthias is that there is an increasing use of AI in all companies, from small biotech up to top 10 pharma. But that was very different just a few years ago. And I think there's been a huge step up in developing the right talent, having people within these companies who have the right skills, the right expertise, the right background to be able to use AI productively. But I think we still have a long way to go in educating everyone within these companies who's involved in these processes, what the use and what the limitations of AI can be. It's not enough just to have a small AI team. You have to transform organizations in a way that they become AI ready. And that means thinking through whether some processes need to change, thinking through whether the milestones and the value we assign to these milestones has to be reevaluated. So I think it really is about an organizational change, and that we understand better how we can use AI and how it can really make a difference. That's basically on the what I would call structural organizational side. And on the technical side, as I mentioned before, I think data is absolutely crucial. We know that we have serious issues with reproducibility in our industry. There was kind of a big case kind of at Harvard recently. There were kind of big cases kind of that were published in Nature very recently, that we really need to think very carefully. Do we have full confidence in the data that we use to train these models? Because if we don't, then it goes back to the machine learning mantra of garbage in, garbage out, and you won't see a model which helps you actually move forward in your drug discovery program.
Olivia?
I would add, so very quickly, I would say, and I'll give a positive note to each of these. The first one I would say is the ability to have rapid feedback loops. in any context, being able to rapidly validate your AI. So Matthias mentioned co-pilots. Well, if you could just get through that feedback loop very quickly, you wouldn't need a co-pilot anymore. And then I think Martin's company is actually, at least in preclinical development, hopefully solving some of these rapid feedback loops for some companies. So, if we can get those kind of rapid iterative feedback loops done quicker, that's a really important piece. The second one, data, I absolutely agree, Martin. But I would say that increasingly for us, it's all about sequencing data. And the cost of sequencing data is coming down. Illumina's releasing a new machine every quarter. It's become it's being more competitive in terms of who's offering sequencing capabilities, multi-omics type platforms. We're starting to get better data, both that you can synthesize yourself, but also pre-competitive collaboration. So things like UK Biobank make it much easier to get more data. And then the third thing I would say is compute. And actually, when you start if you're wanting to really do something even preventative, you need enormous amounts of data, and then you need enormous amounts of compute power. But we've seen recently companies like NVIDIA really starting to step up and offer kind of GPUs for this. It's still quite exploratory, but I would say that is very promising. So against all of those limitations, I think there is certainly clear paths forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe one quick final question for you guys, and then I'd like to come to Marko. Are there any enabling technologies that we're seeing emerge that we might expect to play a significant role in making AI drug discovery more of a success?
I mean, maybe kind of echoing kind of the point that Olivia just made, which is, I think, a critical one. Sequencing is a very nice example for a technology that can provide us with huge amounts of highly valuable biological data and insights, which can then help us kind of perform better AI training, better AI modeling. Another technology that we see in our company and the wider industry getting a lot of additional attention is robotics. Because for the longest time, robotics has been seen as an application almost exclusively used for high throughput screening, 1 million hits, kind of 1 million molecules that you screen to find potential hits. That was the primary application. But over the past 5 years, that has changed completely. And by now you have companies from Recursion to Exscientia, from In Situ to ourselves at Arctoris, that leverage robotics on a far broader scale. Again, with the idea of how can we make sure we generate more data at higher quality? How do we make sure we capture metadata, which is also a very important concept that in the tech world has been recognized as a crucial one for a very long time, which in our industry is now starting to be looked at as well. So that is something which, with a view towards accelerating the feedback loop, in line with Olivia's comment, that is something we think is a very interesting combination.
Okay, great. So Marko, coming to you next then, what would you say is the current investor perspective? In your opinion, what areas have the biggest opportunity when it comes to the use of AI? And what would you say when it comes to approaching AI, if you are an investor? Should investors approach AI with caution? What kind of things do we need to continue to see for investors to take more of an increased interest?
Sure. I mean, that's a bunch of questions, but I think so. Before going into that, I mean, coming back to what Matthias said, I would actually. So if there would be 2 machines in terms of an investment that would actually hammer out and structure the deal and come up with the terms, and I could be a rubber stamp on top of that, that would make me extremely happy. I don't see that happening in at least in a short while because of the sort of intricacies in human interaction in that process as well. But maybe that's coming as well. But yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion on the data aspect. So I mean, I guess from an investor's perspective, I think you can approach this from 2 different angles. If you are a sort of a developer of AI solutions for drug development, I think one approach is that you can say that you have either generated or you have tapped into proprietary data, right? Where the actual data set that you use to train and validate those models that you have is something unique, something that others can't tap. And I think quite often, at least what we see, is that this is not the case, because you have existing, publicly available or at least available big high quality data sets that you can tap into. And then I guess the other way to approach this is to say that, do you believe that you have a better understanding of the intricacies of that data set and its potential uses? Do you have the technical ability to actually create a more meaningful or a better performing AI model than someone else in the market? I think those are sort of some of the key questions that we look at. And as we discussed, I mean, AI can be used across the drug discovery spectrum in a wide variety of settings. I mean, for target discovery, you can sort of predict and map disease pathways. You can use it for hit discovery, lead optimization, ADME toxicity, in clinical trial design, predicting clinical trial outcomes, preparing for regulatory filings, and then the list goes on and on. So I guess it's actually quite important, and this might seem like a no-brainer, but somehow I feel that it's necessarily not. But it's very important to be very precise in that. What are the models and capabilities, and where do they fit within this spectrum of drug discovery that then sort of translates to what you can do to whom? Who are your customers? What is a value proposition that you can have for them? And if we think about this sort of earlier stages, think about target discovery and the drug discovery process. I mean, you have a lot of companies there, and I guess in terms of business models, you can either you can go sort of three ways. You can either be a tech provider and license the tech out to pharmaceutical companies and biotech, or then you can use the technology internally to actually create assets, create development programs that you then license out either in a very early stage or in later stages, where you sort of yourself develop the asset forward to a certain point in the process. And if you think about the capabilities that are needed from the company perspective to be either a tech provider company or an asset development company, that looks completely different. The investments need, so I guess the business potential can be completely different. So some of the key aspects that we certainly look. And I guess another, I think it's important.
I think might be losing Marko a little bit there. Marko, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I think you're in and out just a little bit. But yeah, if you'd like to just repeat what you were mentioning there.
Hello?
Yeah, Marko, are you still with us?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, I think you're back now.
All right, apologies. I guess that's my that's my internet.
That's all right. No,
sure.
that's right.
Then I think that I guess sort of the final point that I wanted to make, well, I mean, from an investor's perspective, it's super important to understand whether sort of the solution is aiming at increasing the quality of output, increasing the success rate, for example, for a drug or a development program, or do we start from the assumption that we can't necessarily reach better quality by using AI compared to the traditional human-led process, but then say that we can actually slice away time from the drug development process and sort of help them sort of fail faster or succeed faster, sort of kill programs earlier, avoid costs, and sort of reach those successes faster. And I think there's a lot of value to be had in being able to expedite that process, perhaps, rather than increase the quality of the process. But I'm eager to hear others' perspective on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have just had a couple of questions coming in from the audience. One question that I'd like to ask everyone on the panel, where and how do we see the industry evolving over the next 3 to 5 years? And what are some of the key trends? But before we come to that one, so we've just had a question coming in. How do investors look at the two business models described? Which investors prefer the tech platform as a service versus B, the asset from tech platform license? How does the appetite vary between the two?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I would say that tech investors would probably prefer that tech driven model, just simply also because that's sort of a market and a go-to-market model that they understand better and they have more expertise in. And I would say if we go to the other route where you actually are an asset development company that uses these AI models, then you'd probably want to talk with life science expert investors, because then actually your business case is not anymore on the actual tools. They are an enabler of your business potential, but you're essentially talking about a biotech or a drug development company, and hence you need sort of specialized expertise also from the investor's perspective.
Okay, great. Ed, we've got a question here which might be more for yourself. So with a broad and varied range of use cases, what is the product and or service that AlphaSense can monetize, and what kind of revenue model does this imply?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm more than happy to go into more detail this after the webinar with whoever sent the question through. But AlphaSense is a traditional SaaS model, which is based on a licensed price, annual subscription to the platform, which includes all of the data within the tool. And yeah, I'd love to have conversations with anyone that would love to learn more about AlphaSense. Offline, we can share my contact details and we can go into more depth in terms of pricing and everything along that after this webinar.
Fantastic. Okay, so about just under 3 minutes left, so I'd like to keep this quite short and rapid fire. Matthias, I'll come to you first. Next 3 to 5 years, how do you think the industry is going to evolve? What do you think is going to happen in the future?
Yeah, as said, next 3 years, age of Copilot, and then we will see more and more that really the ways how we work will change fundamentally.
Olivia, if you're looking into that crystal ball, what's your thoughts? What do you think?
It's going to be a very challenging time for biotech because of the levels of inflation we've got, macroeconomic situation forcing down need to move products or generate revenue as quickly as possible, which means that the golden era of AI coming to the fore will be held back for a few years, but it will come eventually. It will just take longer.
Martin, come into you next.
Yep. So I think what we're seeing already happening around us is some degree of consolidation. I think we're seeing that there are some bigger players emerging, some smaller players which join forces with these larger ones, which hopefully will help create even more critical mass kind of in these then very experienced and well-equipped players. But yes, kind of the funding environment is something which might cause a bit of headache for some time. But overall, I think we're in a very exciting time. In the next 5 years, drug discovery will continue to evolve very rapidly.
Fantastic. Marko, any final thoughts from yourself?
So I think that the funding environment definitely is difficult, and it's difficult for all. It's not only for biotech. I would say it's a difficult environment for all because of the macroeconomic environment. And so that sort of creates a downward slope. But then on the other hand, especially if sort of your company tagline includes the term generative AI and the generative AI hype, so you have that sort of upward slope there. So and there's going to be an intersection. But yeah, I would believe that the funding environment will be tough over the next just a couple of years, and I hope that it will get better. And what I would really love to see over the next 3 to 5 years is that we actually see these concrete success stories of actually something where AI has played a very central role to reach patients and reach actual clinical use. And I think that will sort of help then further to estimate what are the real sort of potential areas with AI.
Fantastic. And lastly, Ed, I'll just bring it back to you just before we finish.
Sure.
Any trends that you see over the next 3 to 5 years in the industry?
Yeah, no, I agree with Martin. I think it's an incredibly exciting future with the adoption of AI across all these different use cases. But I think where corporations and smaller biotechs will start to understand it's all about the data. It's all about having high quality data, both external and internal data, and the power of that data and being able to exercise that is going to come with real value, no matter what size organization you are.
Fantastic. I think that concludes today's webinar. Thank you so much, everyone, for such a great discussion. Ed, for the great presentation at the beginning. To all of our attendees, there will be a recording made available after the webinar. and hope to see you all in person soon. Hope it's not any holograms. Hope to, continue those human interactions at conferences and events. And yeah, we'll speak to you all very soon.